Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Episode 15, 100% confirmed. Check the wire. Myself, DanGheesling, Ryan Gary Letourneau. What's going on, man?
Hello. Yeah, happy to be here. Learned a lot about podcasting over the course of the last 40 minutes or so.
He's Rob Cesarino is you could call him the godfather of podcasting in a certain space.
Seems like I learned a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I was like, I tuned in because I was like, I bet it's going to go over because I also podcast with Dan. So I just put on some Mario practice for tomorrow and learn a little bit.
I appreciate you understanding. I don't feel good about going over on time, which is one of my L's, which is my L of the week, which we'll get to that. But before, because people are going to want to know, it's been a 5+7 days. You got the new rig, it's humming, you got the LED lights everywhere. What's life like on a modern day PC?
It's just a lot better, like full stop. And now, like when you're in the mix, like when you're, I mean, I kind of equate it to like working out, I guess. Like when you're at your valley for physical fitness, you don't think it's that bad. But then if you work out for 3 months and you look back at yourself, you're like, oh my God, I was like a disaster, right? So when I look at like my streams and my videos, it's crisp, it's clear. My camera is synced and running at like at least 30, but usually 60 FPS. When I look back at videos from 2 weeks ago, I'm like, man, why were people watching this garbage? Like that was a mess. So everything's good with the new PC so far. It's humming along. I had to render, I had to do some editing for a sponsored thing.
What?
I know. And so I was like, oh, on my old PC, it would have been a disaster, right? New PC, 2-hour-long video rendered in like, I don't know, 20 or 25 minutes. And I was like, this is a dream come true.
Wow, you're in the future right now, where everyone else is living in the past.
It feels good, yeah. And I even got a new mouse too, because when you upgrade one thing, you're like, no, it's a normal. It's hand shaped. It's just just this thing right here.
I saw the blue glint.
It's got a little glint. I didn't know you could get a cool gamer mouse for like $20.
Yeah,
maybe $30. I thought they were all like $300.
Is there anything, I don't want to say expensive spirit, anything you wish you upgraded that you didn't, or you're planning to upgrade next?
Honestly, the next thing 100% is a new wired Xbox One controller, because mine's like kind of on its last legs. But apart from that, like, I want to get a 144 hertz monitor. Like a middle monitor, 144 hertz, I think would be sick.
Is your Xbox controller ground down from Miyazaki salt?
It probably, that's a big part of it, actually. Oh no, I'm just thinking I have to play Dark Souls today, and this thing's all jacked up. But I think I could use my PS4 controller. But it's just time. It's time for that to go.
Oh, understandable. All right, so from new controllers right into episode 15, W of the week. I have a feeling there's many pogging off from your arena. What's your W or L of the week, whatever you want to start with?
I'll start with my W because I don't even know if I have a good L this week. Hopefully it'll come up naturally from just our conversation. The W of the week is that my 10 a.m. time slot is sorted for a bit. Monster Train is pogging off. People like it. People love it. The game is finally out as of today. So like, it's almost like a little bit of an L, because whenever we do Check the Wire, I talk about this time slot. I'm like, I want to keep rotating new stuff in there to get variety. And then like I'd play something for 4 days, pivot to something else. And then second thing is like an A+. So Eden stuck around for like a month and a half. And Monster Train, originally I was like, it's fun. I did a Northernlion tries. And then the reaction was like, the first video got like 5,000 likes or something like that. So I'm like, I gotta just start the series immediately. And people are really like eating it up. I think it's a good game for me, and it's a good game for the kind of content that I make. So that's my win of the week, is I got a lot of momentum specifically in that time slot right now.
So when you did the first look at it, you're like, okay, this is a good game, but you didn't think it was like next level pog?
It was like definitely a candidate. It was a candidate, but then like you never know until the reaction comes out. When the reaction came out, I pivoted like right away. Luckily, the only thing I was doing in that slot earlier was like just random Mario Maker levels, which was also fun. But I was like, we could do this instantaneously. We could pivot instantaneously.
So okay, so that was a big win for you then, because it's an unexpected series popping off. It's good. You like the game, and then plus the release is going to come out, so that's going to be instant. You think insertion into views of when?
I mean, I hope so. It's in a great spot as far as views go right now. Like every day, it's the most viewed thing on the channel right now. Obviously, over time, that'll change. But like Eden never got there. Eden was like the first episode. It's not fair because the first episode of everything always does really well. But then like after like 3 or 4 days, it was like down around where it pretty much ended.
Okay.
It was stayed around like maybe 20 to 25,000 views most of the time. But like this is really good. Well, I don't know how much momentum like the release will bring, but I definitely think it has the potential to be like, I don't quite think it's as good as Slay the Spire, but that's not a slight. Slay the Spire is like an A++ game in my life. I think it's like an A to A+. But it's a lot more viewable maybe because the animation's a little bit more potent and the synergies. Like Slay the Spire is probably a little boring for you. If I could make some conjecture.
I was gonna ask
go ahead.
for someone who's never gonna play Monster Train. Tell me, how is it different than Slay the Spire? And I like Slay the Spire.
So the main thing, and there's a lot of like aesthetic differences in the way the game is played is different a little bit for sure. The big thing I would say is that in Slay the Spire, you get better really slowly. Like you take a card that does 6 damage, all of a sudden it does 9, right? Or all of a sudden it does 8, but it makes the enemy weak for a turn. So you slowly piece together something that makes your deck good, and enemies slowly get stronger as well. In Monster Train, your base deck is garbage. As soon as you get to upgrade units, though, they become like Marvel superheroes. Like you might have like a 5/8 unit. The first time you go to upgrade it, now it's like it's a 10/23, and also every time it hits twice instead of like hitting only one time, and it hits before the enemies. And then they get like there's a lot more like things scale to an absurd degree. So you start as like a little baby and you finish like the Incredible Hulk.
On the run, or is there progression that carries over between runs?
There is progression that carries over between runs, but it's more like per run, things scale out of control.
Okay. So it could be a front runner for game of the year for you, or is that putting words in your mouth?
That's putting words in my mouth.
Okay.
It's in there. Like it's somewhere near the top for sure.
Okay.
Did Warzone come out this year, or is that last year? I think it's last year.
You may have just upset a little bit of the community, but you know what? Warzone is extremely good eats. Okay, so that was your W. Is there anything else you want to sprinkle in the W before I share my W?
I mean, the only other W is new PC stuff, which we already kind of touched upon. It's just nice to... I've still got a lot of stuff to do, like porting over the old scenes from OBS and overlays and animations and stuff like that, but...
Isaac has cloud save?
Pretty much everything on Steam that's come out since like 2015 has cloud saves, including Afterbirth has cloud saves, which is fine. But I did lose my double switch cloud save, so I had to beat that from 0. But that only took 10 minutes.
Okay.
and then 4 hours. And Landlord Super didn't have a cloud save, so I had to replay more of it. But it was still like,
Yeah, and the grand...
It's the price you pay. There's always going to be like things that get screwed up when you move from one system to another.
What about your OBS setup? Do you use OBS Live or OBS Original?
I use OBS Studio.
Oh, so it's just automatic import?
Yeah.
Then? Ooh.
Well, no, like I saved like the profile stuff, but honestly, the problem is like some of the stuff, because Jay built all the functionality for it. It kind of like stopped working a week before I got the new PC. So I'm like, I'm not gonna fix it. I'm just gonna go to the new PC and then we'll fix it when it's over there. But we got other things on the fire right now. Right now, we're just like get it working, get it running, and we'll add the fluff after that.
Did you, last question, or PC, did you have to stream the day you set it up, or did you stream or do your stuff and then shut it down and rebuild it at night so there was no like lag time?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got lucky because it came on Thursday. So I would like Thursday morning. I worked all day Thursday, didn't set it up overnight because like Friday's a big day.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Friday I did all the work there. And then Friday night, as soon as I finished that work, I uploaded the videos from the old PC, took all the files that I thought I needed, and then, yeeted the PC and set up the new one. And I don't know about you, but when it comes to like tech stuff, I always procrastinate it because I think it's going to be way more annoying than it actually is. Then when I do it, it's like, it took like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. You're unplugging stuff, you plug it back in, you download like the 8 applications you actually use, and then make sure you download Warzone because it's 100 gigabytes, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like I know I need a new hard drive because I'm out of space all the time, but it's like I don't want to open that thing up. I don't want to mess with jumpers and SCSI cables and all that kind of stuff. SCSI is actually some kind of protocol. It's not like dirties for people that
I
are.
believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was good. So I'm gonna share with you my W, and so far we're on track. My W of the week is, and I went pretty hard at this, is that socially on social media, I have a book that says Monday, we're going to promote the podcast. Tuesday, we're going to promote Check the Wire. Wednesday is YouTube one. Thursday is miscellaneous. So every day on social media, I'm like, okay, at least I have some framework to go about of what am I going to post today? And like, I'm always, when I do that kind of stuff, I'm always trying to walk the line of hey, I don't want to spam people, but at the same time there's stuff out there that people don't know about because you can never really share enough. So where that came from though is not to cross promote, but I just messed around last week with Instagram stories about, I put up like an Instagram story about the podcast I do on Mondays, and the incrementation, like it was like a 25% gain in listens just from like a few posts. And that's the only thing I did. And I'm like, was there a really good guest on? Was there like a spicy topic? And no, that was, I mean, you can never know, but that's what I isolated the variable down to. So I'm like, okay, I got like this really kind of quick burst of, well, what if I were to do that with everything extended with a plan and just to see how it goes? Because at the same time, you are increasing your workload. Like you're doing more, but I'm not just, oh, what do I post today? It's like, okay, hey, look, here's the theme of the day. And can you stay within that theme and get creative and have fun? And so that's been it's been good for me for a lot of reasons. One, I think clearly it has an effect on growth and letting people know. But also what I found is that in my downtime or my time where I may be going to like supermemes.net, like I'm not going there. I'm like, okay, hey, look, today is, Check the Wire promotion day. I can squeeze in a Snapchat post or do something there. And so that's been something that I've been consistently doing this week. I think it's really hard to do over a long period of time, but part of me, that's like the challenge, and I'm looking forward to doing that. And
Well, it's good. I think it's good. Like, I've been dabbling on and off. I really, my promotion on like Twitter is horrible right now. When I make TikTok videos in batches, and then I just yeet them onto Twitter like in one thread. But but part of that for me is because I know a lot of people don't like to use TikTok. So I'm like, hey, you're not missing anything by not following me there. I wish you would, because it would be nice for me. But at the same time, I think this stuff's funny and it promotes my content in like another way. But just having you're giving me ideas and inspiration, like thinking about what to do takes a lot of time. But if you know what you're going to do, then you're like, okay, this is only going to take me, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes. And, when it's on the list and it's just part of the normal work that you're already doing that day, then, I imagine it's a lot easier to get in the routine of doing it instead of like, should I do it? I need to find a piece of content to make this work. What should I promote, et cetera, et cetera.
Let me volley this question to you because it's something that I think about is, do you ever think about over spamming your audience or about sharing, not about like your life, but like too much content? Or like when you're saying, oh, I could tweet this video out. Do you ever process that or have that conversation in your head?
I think, it runs counter to like my YouTube philosophy. My YouTube philosophy has always been like, I'm probably not the type of content creator who goes like super viral and is like, I'm not getting like 90 kill games in Fortnite that are going to get 10 million views on YouTube. But instead, I can cultivate a community of people that really like my stuff. And I can always work an extra 45 minutes and put out one more video that day. So I think I'm all in on like the deluge, the flood of content. So I think as long as you're not spamming, I think on Twitter, like there's different etiquette for different places, right? Like on Twitter, I think you can definitely spam people. If you tweet like 20 times in half an hour, people that only follow like less than 500 people are going to be like, I don't want this to just be you. I want, I follow this to get like a diverse amount of content in my feed. But in terms of like, if you spread it out, like if you're posting one like branded thing a day, I don't think that's a big deal at all. And if anything, I think it's something that people would rather see out of a content creator that they follow instead of like, I had a sandwich for lunch and it was delicious, or like, oh, I stubbed my toe, this sucks, blah, blah, blah. I would always rather see like a 30-second to 1 minute clip from somebody than like a little slice of their life, honestly.
No, and that's, sometimes I don't say struggle with it, but that's the debate in my head. And I had this conversation once a long time ago with someone, and someone told me like, hey, someone is following you because they like what you do and they want to see more of it. So like, don't worry about oversharing your content. But in the same vein for me, like, and I notice the stuff, but it doesn't, like, when I say notice it, it has like a sliver of a meaning to me, which is none. I've noticed like my Twitter followers go down, which I don't really care, because I'd rather share something to people that care about it and have people leave that don't care than like cater to the people that are leaving that is something I don't care about, if that makes
Well,
sense.
I think I agree 100%. I think that's a problem people have on YouTube all the time. And I think this is a great example. This is a really good way for me to think about YouTube. You probably, I mean, I imagine your original social media growth was due to Big Brother.
Yeah.
So you probably still have people that followed you like 10 years ago for Big Brother and check Twitter like once every 6 months and forget that it exists. And then they see you tweet, they're like, I don't care about Big Brother anymore. What are you going to do? Right.
Yeah.
It's not like you're not going to make one tweet that's going to win that person over. What you're doing is you're losing like the followers that are irrelevant because they don't really care about what you're doing anymore. And you're keeping and growing like a stable of people who actually do enjoy the content. I see it happen with YouTubers where they hit like, a certain, they grew with virality at some point, and then as that kind of faded away, every time they post videos they like lose subscribers, or maybe they maybe they gain a few but they also lose them over time, and that it puts you in this headspace. I'll even make it about Twitch too, because I've seen streamers complain about it, where like sometimes you'll go live and let's say you have like 1,000 subscribers, you finish a 3-hour stream and you've got 950. And in your head, you're like, I went live and I worked and I lost money. But what actually happened is like, you would have lost 100 if you hadn't been live. Because you were live, you got 50 back. So like, I just see it like the making of the content is the churn that you have to do to be in this business in the first place. You can't be worried about like posting too much that it pushes people away, is my personal opinion about it, at least.
Yeah. And
what are you going to do? Post nothing? Like if you post nothing, it's just over. Isn't that like you're going to pitch? What are you going to do? Pitch yourself on a brand deal that's like, I never post, but I have 300,000 Twitter followers.
Well, this takes me back because I think you used to do this. So confirm or deny. But I feel like back in the day when I followed you, did you used to have auto YouTube posts to Twitter?
I did, but they killed it.
Oh, they killed it because I thought
YouTube killed it. Yeah.
Oh, I wonder why would they did that. I thought you made the decision not to do that.
No, I would keep that on in a heartbeat.
Really?
I know there's other ways to do it. Like some other YouTubers have, like they've built software, had software built for them. That's just like it. I think the way that it works is it just the YouTube API will send out a ping when something on X channel goes live, and then you just link that up to your Twitter account and blah, blah, blah. But I don't really want to do that because I don't like to get like third-party software connected to my YouTube account because it's just a little too close to the source. But I would have kept it on in a heartbeat because I don't think you can lose by promoting your content as long as it's not literally like 100% and constantly happening throughout the day. I think there's I bet I've lost a few thousand viewers who were in the habit of like just being on Twitter, see a video, click on it and watch it. And now that doesn't exist, like they've lost that habit, which is fine. It's just the ebbs and flows of the business. But
so with the infinite amount of time and resources and energy, you would tweet out every video. You have what, 6 videos go live a day? More than that?
Something like that.
You would tweet out everyone if it was possible.
I probably would. Yeah. I mean, this is like perfect world situation. But if I had like a social media person, I would probably be like, take a clip from each video and then write copy for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like here's why you should watch this video, and then like post it and then the link to go watch it.
That's good eats. I mean, can you imagine you have like 6 videos, 6 of the best moments, 6 headline grabbing pieces of copy on a tweet. Like, I mean, now you're like talking like you're like you have 800 tentacles a day for someone to just click and like it. That's kind of like.
And if people want to unfollow me on Twitter, I mean, we're not doing it at least not yet. But if people wanted to unfollow me on Twitter because of that, then I think that's okay. There's a lot of people I've unfollowed on Twitter. I like their content, but on Twitter, I'm just like, this is too much, or you're constantly talking about stuff that is just not relevant for things I'm interested in.
So, okay, without, calling out an individual Twitter
Right.
account
Yeah.
that you unfollowed, but what for you, what is, what makes you push the gas, or what when they step on the gas, you're like, I'm out? Like, where's your threshold for clicking the unfollow button?
It's specific to a lot of people for sure. I'm sure it's the same for you. I mean, it might even be different for you. You might have to just mute them because you don't want it to pop up that you've unfollowed anywhere. But like for me, it's like the closer you are to a person, the more tolerance you have. Like I will never unfollow you or Mouth. It would take like you'd have to go so far off the deep end that it would be comical for me to unfollow, right? So, and if I don't know anybody, to follow them is out of control. You've got to be putting out solid gold constantly. But what happens is a lot of like content creators I've met at events, or I know through like, hey, they stream with this person who I met in real life and they said that person's cool, blah, blah, blah. The number one thing for me is if you tweet about like meta Twitch drama, meta YouTube drama nonstop. If you weigh in on like every single piece of Twitch and YouTube drama, I'm like, no disrespect, but I just don't care. Like I just don't want to see this stuff. Is melting my brain. Like I'm an adult who's gonna have a child soon. I just don't care. I got other problems. And then the other one is like, and I want to actually to talk about it in a positive way. There's streamers I don't follow, but if they make like a clip that's like, check out this 1 minute highlight from my stream, I'll watch it 100% of the time. Even if I've never seen any of their content before, I'm like, this is like America's Funniest Home Videos. I know there's going to be some gas in this clip, right? It's not just going to be boring, or they wouldn't tweet it. But if it, on the flip side, it's almost like if somebody never uses their social media platform to reinforce why I followed them in the first place, if they only talk about personal stuff, it's usually fine. But if they tweet about it 20 times a day, eventually you're going to catch me in a mood where I'm like, I don't care, and I'm just going to click the unfollow button. Is really what it comes down to. And again, I want to add in the other part of this. You're entitled to use your social media presence however you want. A lot of people would listen to us talking and probably be like, oh, it's overly cynical that they're using this platform where they can interface with fans one-on-one as like a branded like business thing. But I kind of see it like you can do both. You can respond to people's comments one-on-one and be like, thanks for, being nice, or thanks for the support on this. But you can also make, like, for lack of a better word, business posts that are like, this clip's great. If I repackage it and again, write some copy around it, it could bring people back for this content in the future.
That's interesting.
How about what does it take for you to unfollow somebody? I don't think you want to answer that.
No, I mean, for me to unfollow, once I follow, it's a commitment, right? And like, so my go-to move, you had me pegged, and I don't know if we had talked about this in the back channel, but because I know you can see if I unfollow you, you're getting muted, and you won't even know you're muted. So like, and there's people that I've had to go back. I'm like, man, I haven't heard from this person on Twitter in a long time. I'm like, he's muted. So for me to unfollow like a actual person that I've met or know, it's like, it's probably not gonna happen. If it does, then it's like, hey, it's almost like the ties of real life have also been severed. But also,
or like they blew up in the news for something horrible. You would be like, I'm cutting because I don't want anybody to be like, why does Dan follow this guy?
But sometimes like there's like meme accounts I'll follow and be like, oh, this was funny, and then like 3 posts later it's like something extremely minky. So like I'll get in and out of like meme accounts and stuff that I think's funny. But I think it's interesting because there's something that I do sometimes is like, if I'm looking at someone or I thought someone's funny, and if I make the decision to follow them, I'm like, do they follow anyone I know, and vice versa? Because it's like an endorsement. So it's like, if I see that, I'm like, oh, I kind of like this person. I'm not totally sure. I'll be like, oh, Ryan follows them. Like, to me, that's like your kind of endorsement that, it's, and I know it's like we're getting like super granular, but that's kind of what my mind thinks of. At the same time, though, there's people that I've met or had interactions with that maybe less than desirable, and then I'll see like my friends that follow them. I'm like, oh, let's see how this thing plays out, because I'm not gonna go to the person and be like, yo, this person's a jerk, blah blah blah. But also, part of me is like, all right, like, do I say something to this person? Is it my business? Like if it's someone you care about, right? Like you don't want to see something bad happen. Not like anything bad's going to happen, but so I don't know. I think there's some dynamics to who you follow and why on social media. And I know we're taking an extremely deep dive into it and completely gone off the deep end. But at the same time, like I'm sharing, like this stuff goes through my head when I'm on Twitter.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. And I'll tell you, like in 2012, I would follow anybody. I followed like 2,500 people or something ridiculous. Now I will follow. You gotta be putting out gold if you want to get followed. It's out of control. We were so excited about social media back in the day, and then it's kind of a little bit more
mature,
touchy now for sure. Yeah, like 2012 was a different time online, without a doubt.
Have you ever unfollowed someone and then had to deal with the repercussions? Like they knew that you unfollowed them?
Not to the best of my knowledge, but like a year and a half or 2 years ago, I did unfollow like 1,200 people. I took the time to go through my list because I was like, Twitter's unusable. And also it's just endless. Every day is like a new, this person tweeted this, let's get them, So I unfollowed like 1,000 people like that. Or people that like I followed to DM because they won like a trivia prize on an NLSS in 2013. And I was
prizes
like,
on the NLS.
I know, right? But then, so I unfollowed like a lot of those people. And then sometimes I'll see them on Twitter, like their tweet will be retweeted by somebody else. And I'll look and I'm like, oh, they don't follow me anymore. And I'm like, that's fair. But I can run through in my head, reverse engineer. I'm like, surely they probably looked at me at one point and were like, oh, he doesn't follow me anymore. So I'm going to click the unfollow button as well to just to get him back.
I had a little monk ass face because I'm not going to call anyone out, but I'm just saying, someone in our circle, I've just recently noticed they don't follow me anymore where I knew they did. And so I'm like, I'm not gonna lie, like it changes my perspective on everything. I'm like, I know I didn't tweet anything offensive. So then you're like, did I like slight this person somehow and I'm ribbing a joke? And but anyways, the other thing I wanted to ask before we get off the Twitter train, I noticed that like you give out favorites on Twitter, kind of like hotcakes at a Ponderosa.
Oh yeah.
What's your take on how you use the favorite button on Twitter?
I use the favorite as like it's a read receipt. Basically. It's if something's not rude and I saw it, I usually click the heart button. Now, if you're like, why don't I get any hearts? And I tweet you all the time, there is a slim chance you're muted. And if you want to know that, then you should look back at your tweets. Don't just look at your tweets from like this year. You could look at your tweets from like 4 years ago and be like, did I send him some weird stuff? In which case you're probably muted forever. I'm sorry to say. I can't go through those individually. But the other thing is maybe you're tweeting me like, I mean, from like 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., I probably like won't see it because I'm working. And then from like midnight to 9:30 a.m., I won't see it because I'm like in bed. So there's really only like there's like 4 hours where maybe I'll see it, but you know, for the most part, I use it as like a read receipt. How about you?
I do notice without like, and it kind of hit me last night. Like, there's a window where I know if you're like tweeting me made up song lyrics, I'm like, oh, this is Ryan's time on social media. That happened last night. I'm like, he's tweeting me song lyrics that are made up at, you know, whatever it is my time. I'm like, it's funny, but I'm like, okay, so this was his downtime.
It's true, yeah.
For favorites for me are things that like I either really, really enjoyed. Like, for example, someone tweeted us a Team Unity logo. To me, that's that's like prime favorite thing, you know, just because it's something I want to refer back to. So I kind of use favorites as like a resource of like, oh, I saw this person did art, or oh, they sent a cool clip. Let me favorite that because like, number one, I like it, but number two, when I like produce something and I may need an editor, or I may need you know, something, that's someone I'm going to go to, be like, hey, you made this, can I, you know, would you consider doing this and, you know, hire you and blah, 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 which I did learn. Speaking of Twitter, I didn't expect it to come full circle. I don't want to talk about it too much because it's still in the works, but I sent a tweet out that says, hey, and this is the first time I've ever done this, and the last time I said, hey, I need to hire a couple voiceover actors and actresses. And like, hey, you know, if you know someone, you know, send them my way. And it was literally just like 72 hours of like, bam, 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 where I got flooded and I couldn't see like the normal responses people I interact with. And it got to the point where like what I was looking for was someone within like an arm's reach. So maybe like someone that you knew or someone that knew you, like someone in the community, not like all these random people that, you know, I have no connection to. But like I was super grateful for all the submissions, but it was the first time in a long time I've deleted a tweet. I'm like, no more. I don't want any more VO reels. I'm good. So I deleted the initial tweet, and I'm sure along with it, kind of like the 200 responses somewhere got flushed in the Twitterverse.
Yeah.
But that's the first time where I felt like, man, I've experienced the Twitter fire hose, and I can't make it stop.
Yeah, no, and I mean that's why, like, if anything, I'm like, that's the way I want to use social media way more now. Is actually, I mean, I think there's a lot of advantages to one-on-one interactions with people that are like, hey, I really enjoyed this video. You know, you took the time to type that to me. I can click the heart button, or I can reply and say thank you. And to like basically use it as like a marketing pipeline for cool stuff from the stream or cool stuff from a video that, you know, like I have like 130,000 followers on Twitter. Maybe 30,000 people watch the video. So probably like less than 10% of the people who follow me on Twitter actually watch this clip, so I can get it out there and people might be like, oh, now I'll go watch the video. Or even if they don't watch the video, they enjoyed the clip. And then, you know, that's a positive for me. I'm way less interested. Like I am just insanely skeptical of anybody who is only Twitter famous and likes it. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Because I see people there like I have 400,000 or I have 800,000 followers on Twitter. I'm famous just for being involved in Twitter controversies. And I'm like, it's not for me. You don't make any money. Like you don't, for one, it's bringing you stress, I'm sure. But secondarily is like, you're not getting anything out of it except like a number.
No, well, I think you kind of like, you said money. I was thinking like, you're not creating anything. Like, what are you creating?
Yeah.
Like that's people, you know, I guess drama or whatever. But to come full circle on the conversation, and I kind of want to put a bow on it, but do you ever think about, hey, because I'm saying, do you ever think about, because this is what I think about. Do you ever think about, hey, I had too many promotional posts in a row. Let me think of something different to post that's like a change up or something personal or something funny that has nothing to do with self-promoting. Or you don't, that doesn't cross your mind.
I don't, but I do think it depends on the person. Well, the thing is, like when I follow a brand, I follow them like for promotional stuff, you know? So if I follow, you know, twitch.tv/Gassy Mexican, I don't mind if he tweets like, sorry, I'm waking up late today. I had a long night last night.
Why are you calling out Max like that?
Well, no, because then what I'm going to say is like that's cool. You can use your social media like that. But I'm much more interested in like when he posts a clip of his stream or like a D&D campaign he's a part of, then I'm like, you know, you can't post enough of that because this is kind of why I followed you in the first place. I don't know, like as an end consumer, you might feel differently. You might be like, hey, stop giving like, honestly, I disagree with the central premise. Let's go hard on this. I think as a creator, I think that you can probably post too much, but it would have to be so much that it would just be ridiculous. You know, I think that if I followed Nestle for whatever reason, and every 10 minutes they made a post that was like, buy Crunch Bars, buy Pure Life Water, buy blah, 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 then I would be like, I'm out of here. But if I follow someone, you know, I'm like, I like this person's streams. I like this person's videos. I don't think there would ever be a time where I'm like, oh, they posted 6 clips from their stream today. I didn't sign up for that. If anything, I would be like, yo, they had a great day on Twitter and I got to see some cool stuff.
Let me, this is the Rare Air live audience poll. Why in chat, if you believe someone you follow like on YouTube or Twitch on Twitter, if they could share too much clips, content with you regarding for the reason of like what you make on YouTube, like gaming videos or streams. And if you're like, no, they can't give us enough. Did I get that right? Did I confuse those? I think I messed up the Y's and N. Anyway,
they know.
Yeah.
They know.
I'm interested to see that breakdown. But anyway, so I think that's an interesting conversation. But I feel like this is, I mean, I'm not saying anything probably doesn't anyone think, but like how we communicate online is. Let me ask this: do you think that sometimes I see people post things, and
I could tell this, and
is
I'm
like,
be good.
I'm just like, you would never say that in that vernacular in your real life. Like you just wouldn't say like, I'm trying to think of something. Like just like I'm just like when I see your tweets, I'm like, I can hear him say that in his voice. But like, it's never like, I don't know. I wish I had an example. Do you ever think that, or no? Like, you're just like typing that out. That's not how you really talk.
Look, this is like, I've been thinking about this because I
Yeah.
did make a tweet complaining about the Monster Train comments. And I've been, because I remember like maybe a month ago, you were like, never complain on social media. And I disagree, but only in the sense, like, I think if you complain all the time on social media, then that becomes like who you are to other people, which sucks. For me, I'm like, I think this is hilarious. Like, I'm venting, but at the same time, I'm venting in my own voice. And I'm not just venting to be like, give me sympathy. I'm venting because I'm like, I think other people will find this funny. I found, and anyway, so like basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think, yeah, I definitely think that people, they behave online, especially on Twitter, about in a way that they wouldn't behave in real life. But I also see kind of Twitter as like, I think there's is like quicksand, kind of. Like, I think if you're already in a bad mood or a little bit on tilt and you go to Twitter and you see other people, you're like, bad news, bad news. Look at this idiot's opinion. That's just ridiculous. Let's get him. Bad news is a picture of a cute dog. Bad news, bad news. Like, it, then you tweet, you're more likely to tweet something that's like, everything sucks. And then, it just kind of sets the tone for like your whole day. Which I think is like why, as I've gotten older, I honestly have more respect for people in our industry that treat their Twitter account less as like a live journal and more as like a combination between like brand and customer service. Like, thank you for your nice comment, and also here's a sweet clip from today's show. Like, I've got a lot more sympathy for people that run it like a business rather than people who kind of, for lack of a better word, is like push their burdens onto their audience who got them to that place in the first place.
Okay, so you brought it up, and I made a note internally. I'm like, all right, this is the first time Ryan and I are on opposite sides of the coin, and I'm coming after him on episode 15.
Please do.
So just give us a little update on the context of what happened in the comments. So this new series comes out, Monster Train, and that people are telling you, hey, you misplayed.
Right.
And then what did you take by that? And then what did you put out in the ether on that? And then give me your perspective before I...
Yeah. So, for me, I want to be clear. I was not complaining that the comments were toxic, because they're not toxic. They're constructive criticism with maybe a little sting thrown in. They're not like, hey, just so you know this. They're like, can you believe he doesn't know this yet? So but it's not toxic. It's not like, this guy is an idiot. The comments were largely fine. The only thing that was frustrating for me is that every single comment on like the first 4 to 5 videos was backseating the exact same thing over and over. So, I'm making an effort every night. I go into the comments, and I'll admit, it's almost like the flip side of like, because the same thing's happening in other videos. It's all the same comment, but it's like, I'm pogged up. This is great. I had a wonderful time. So, in a way, I'm trying to dip. I'm double dipping. I want the comments to all be the same, but to not be negative at all. I'll admit that's I mean, I think it's a natural bias for a creator to have to some extent. But the only thing that was frustrating is I'm like, this could have just been like half a dozen comments that had 500 thumbs ups. And then below that, there'd be people that are like, I'm enjoying this, blah, blah, blah. Instead, it was 500 comments with 5 to 100 thumbs ups that all said the same thing. And I was just, the frustrating part is that it's on Twitch, one person would say it, and I would be like, I saw it, and we're going to work through it. But on YouTube, it's like, because of the batch recording and stuff like that, those kind of comments come up over and over and over and over again. So I wanted to, and I think I could have handled this in a better way, although I do think I handled it okay by just venting for humor. Because I think when a lot of YouTubers complain on Twitter, they're like, take a out of context comment with the person's username in it. Can you believe I have to deal with this stuff? For me, it was more like, please, God. Like I felt like I was like working at a restaurant where there's like a sign on the door that's like, we're sold out of porchetta. And everybody that's coming up is like, I'll take a porchetta sandwich. And I'm like, there's a sign.
All right.
Um,
I I don't want this to affect our personal relationship.
I don't think it will.
Okay. So when I saw that, I'm like, okay, hey, look, here's the metaphor. And I'm just this because it's rare that, we're normally like we're on the same coin, but this I think maybe for not comedic, but just for a little extra heat. You got a burger shop. You got a box that says, how can we make our burger better? We like thick onions. One person writes it on a card, puts it in the feedback box. Another, they're telling you how to make the burger. And then the chef comes out, looks at the feedback. There's too much good feedback on telling me how to make a burger. So you're yelling at your customer. One person tells me thick onion. And so I'm like, man, like, they're giving you the keys to the kingdom, but the chef says, "I know what to do."
It's here. In order for this metaphor to make sense,
okay.
Basically, imagine everybody on day one of the shop was like, "Give me thick onions."
Okay.
So I called my supplier and said, "Hey, can we get those onions sliced twice as thick?" And they said, "No problem. They'll be there in 3 days." And then for the next 3 days, I was still getting the thick onion. Can you believe they haven't switched the onions yet? I asked for thick onions yesterday. They're not here by today, and I'm trying to explain. There's like some, we've got a backlog of onions we got to get through. And then when your feedback has been taken and has actually been implemented in videos you have not seen yet, but I can't instantaneously put this stuff.
Well,
I can't put thick onions on the burger.
I got the mirror back at you. How are you telling those customers on day 2 of the restaurant that thick onions are coming? Because if they're coming and filling in the feedback box and say there's no thick onions and they're getting their thin, how are you telling them that?
Well, because I'm in the comments of the video saying thick onions are coming to. I'm in the comments of the menu. I'm posting on the Facebook group for Northern's Burgers. Thick onions are coming on Thursday. The problem is 99% of the customers don't go to the Facebook group and they don't read any signs in the restaurant. They just sit down and go, "What the heck? The onions are still thin."
I will say I did laugh. I saw someone write a comment somewhere that says, "This is exactly why you shouldn't have a backlog," and I just lost it.
Everybody wants one video of each series every day. Nobody ever wants a backlog.
Oh, okay. So, no, I just found
But
that.
anyway, I want to be clear. Like, this is not a situation where I'm complaining about like people are being rude. It was really just like the office-based TPS thing where 12 managers came to me and were like, "Hey, you got to do this." And I'm like, "Yeah, I've been informed." So like it's coming and it's already now it's percolated out and it's under control. But at the same time, I was like, it's just venting. That's why I was like, I think if you super like went hard and you're like, this is ridiculous, that's like a full loss of perspective. Yeah. I'm happy at the end of the day that people are like leaving comments. And most of the people leaving comments are just like, they're fans, but they just that's the culture of that series comments, which is like in this series we make fun of him. In that series we pog up, but in this one we leave comments that are a little bit more barbed. But
no, I thought it was an interesting discussion. All right, so I want to pivot from that to, have you thought of your L of the week?
I mean, the biggest L of the week is probably the Monster Train comments, but it's just part of Isaac's been there. And what I'm doing, if we're going to treat that as an L, it basically comes down to like, I've learned a valuable lesson from it, which is, I think that in Slay the Spire, the comments got so bad just because of how there's a lot of things. Played it for a long time. Everybody played like a ton of it. And then simultaneously, when it's turn-based, you have more time to puzzle through like what the streamer should have done. But it's like I didn't go into the comments, and as a result, it just became like the inmates were running the asylum, right? All the toxicity rose to the top. So what I'm doing instead from Monster Train is actually learning from like a 2-year-old L, which is like, I think if I don't go into the comments, even if a Monster Train episode is like 95% properly played and 5% a little suboptimal, it's going to be like a nightmare. It's going to be exclusively like backseating and even like normal constructive criticism will become toxic because people will just beg the question. They'll be like, I can't believe it's been 2 days and he didn't take my previous comment and like he must be an idiot, blah, blah, blah. So like after After like I vented, I'm in the comments, and I'm being the change I want to see in the world. I'm responding to good constructive criticism by saying thank you. I'm going to learn from that, and I'm replying to bad criticism and saying like, hey, there's a living person on the end of your comment. So I understand like you're kind of burning up my psyche and mood so you can get like 90 thumbs up on YouTube, which is, just consider whether or not you as a human being think that's worth it. And then when the comments are like, I'm pogging up, I'm like, hell yeah, here's a heart. I'm pogging up too. Pogs raining down from the heavens.
No, I think what's cool about it and is that, all right, so you identified something, you didn't like it, but then you also did something about it. It's not just like, oh, I don't like this. Why are you guys doing? I don't like it. You're actually, doing something about it. I think that's a big difference for a lot of people about, whether they want to see something change or not. It's like, okay, you don't like it. And the cool thing is, I think, you're doing the and ultimately it's on you how you want to run your TPS reports. You can do it however you want, and anyone can do it. But I think that was cool. I think that for you, that was, I don't, you call it an L, but like you said, it's been a, it turned it into a W. On my end, the L of the week, it's something that's been extremely important to me, and something we've talked about a little bit, is starting the show on time and ending the show on time. And up until today, I've done a pretty good job out. Meaning, like, normally what happens on the Twitch show is the goal is to start the show at 11. Sometimes what'll happen is I'll start the stream at 10:55 and then put a 10-minute timer, so it doesn't really start at 11. But to me, that's bothersome to me, because I think it's becoming like the expectation that it doesn't start on time. And then, but on the flip side, doing it on the back end, right? Like you and I talked about Unity. Hey, you had something you had to do, and I wanted the hard end time. And I think because when you have the hard end time, it allows you to have a manageable like production, right? So it's not like, oh, Unity went from 3 to midnight, which everyone pogs up about, including us. But like the next day, like you still got to go turn the lights on, put the sign out, sweep the floors. So up until today, it was like starting the show on time, and it's been well, except for today. And my take on it is, I'm in a situation now where, not a situation, but I'm working on this project. I'm not going to talk about it until after it's done, because I don't like talking about what's done until it's done. And it's like, okay, I got to make the decision. Do I start the show on time and lose a potential 4 to 5 hours of someone waiting on an answer from me to produce something? Or do I start the show a couple minutes late and, just kind of deal with it, knowing that what's being created is for the show that I think will pog people up when the time comes. So like, I'll take it as an L of the week, because I didn't start it on time every day this week, which I wanted to. But also part of me, and it's something I know I got to work on, is like being okay with that. Like being like, all right, look, you gotta give and take a little bit, and just kind of deal with it, and people are understanding of it. So I don't know, but I feel like that's one thing I definitely admire about you, is I know, especially on your start times, like it's rare for you to not like to see. I know we talked about last week, but like toxic emotes, it's rare to see like a wave of looking at the watch emote and your channel. Like,
dude, being 10 minutes late is like a disaster psychologically for me. It's like, for me to be 10 minutes late, the most common cause is an Isaac episode that I thought would take 40 minutes took 70 minutes. Everything else, like, it almost never happens. But I think you're, I wouldn't say you're beating yourself up, because again, I think you're taking a lesson from it. But I think like, I wouldn't say like I have a rule for this, but it's just like a mental guideline, is like, if you're hitting what you say you're going to hit like 90 or 95% of the time or more, then I think your audience has like a huge amount of tolerance for that 5 to 10% of stuff. Like people on Tuesday, I wasn't anxious about it, but I was like, on Tuesdays, we normally do Unity in the morning or the early afternoon. And then we do like a solo thing. And that's really like my big solo block for the week, is like a 4-hour period where I could do 2-hour things and get some variety. Or for like Dark Souls, I could really sink in some time. But, what are you going to do? We had our like the big ultrasound for the pregnancy. So people honestly like didn't care. One reason why is because I had a good excuse for sure. Like maybe one of the best excuses you could possibly have. And then the other one, I think, is people are like, he's literally, he doesn't, and this is me blowing myself up here in a good way, I guess, or inflating my ego. But like, he doesn't take like bad excuses to just cut content that he doesn't want to do. Like in the same philosophy as you, like, I don't think you should feel too bad about starting even like 10 to 30 minutes late now and then. Because also, like 4 months ago, you were streaming 3 days a week, and now you're doing like 6 days a week. So I think you're giving like way more above and beyond. So maybe my current standpoint is like, as long as there's a productive reason that you're late that couldn't really be affected, like you shouldn't beat yourself up over it.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me where it's like, I'm always working on something. So it's kind of like you. If it's a little late, it's like, oh man, like this video went over. I'm really planning this. It's not like, hey, I'm sitting here, playing gems on my phone or something. So
Yeah,
that's
you slept in.
yeah, and like that's the thing. And it's like for me, like I just don't like using the crutch of like I'd even say, I think I did today. I don't like saying, hey, here's why I was late, because to me it's like you're late, right? And so I don't know. I think it's a recurring thing, but it's just a matter of how you process it. And for me, I think that's a good way to think about it. Is like, hey, you're trading some time here and there, but it's not because you don't want to be there or because you're not working on something. It's just like sometimes life happens. But at the same time, I don't know. I take stuff so serious internally, like your TV show that you love. 90 days before the 90 days isn't on at 9:07. It's on at 9 or 8 o'clock. And you're going to see, Ash and Ed and Rosemary. They're going to be there. But at the same time, I don't know. That's just something I always kind of go back and forth with. But what I will say, I don't know how it was for you. How is it for you, like on Tuesday, right? We started a little bit early because, everyone's excited to play, but we ended on time. Like, is that something where you're like, this is good eats, or I could have went another hour? I'm not saying because of an ultrasound, but like,
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, I mean, if we're speaking frankly about Unity wasn't as good this week as it was last week. Full stop.
Yeah, it's fair.
So like last week, it was like, we don't want to stop because every run is like a hit. We're getting gold out of every single run. And then this week, I think we all sort of like, I probably could have done one more run, and I'm sure Malf could have, like he can burn the midnight oil on that. But we're like, the energy's like not there today, so it just feels like maybe it would be better to cut it than like throw the dice one more time and hope that it brings us back in like that final run. So I think like it was disappointing for sure, because it's hard to figure it out. Like what the formula is for having a stream where everybody wants to, like, everybody's on their A game 100% of the time. So I really feel like the first games that you have, like the first 4 games determine the tone of Unity. if you have like a bunch of like frustrating situations and deaths, like it can pull people down into the mud, right? But if you start with a win and then a second and then a win, you're like, this is going to be like 8-hour stream or a 9-hour stream for sure. But I think, I think you and I have a similar philosophy. And I do think it's a competitive advantage, even though obviously we're not the biggest streamers on the platform. But we treat the stream like the way that we would want to be treated by like our favorite restaurant, or by like, our favorite TV show is another good example. Is like, if the restaurant on the website says it's going to be open at 11 and I show up at 11:25 and it's still closed, once I'll be like, okay, it happens. But if I come back like next Thursday and it's the same situation, I'm like, I got to find a new restaurant.
You're ripping up your VIP card. You're like,
exactly. There's always like a little paranoia that like, hey, I mean, it's probably true when you get to a certain size. If you start a stream 15 minutes late, you might lose one viewer forever. Like, the person might show up and be like, he's not on time. And then tomorrow they're less likely to check out your stuff. But, you're always obviously like getting more people involved as well. But I think ending on time, my week is just so structured that I have to end on time.
Yeah.
Because I've got, Kate goes live after me, and I've got to like, I really have like a very small amount of slack weekly. Like, even like so before our show here, I practiced Mario for like 30 minutes because I was like, I know you're going to run over, which is fine, but I don't think you're going to run over quite enough for me to fit in like another video.
You were right.
Exactly.
We got like 12-ish minutes over 15 minutes.
So I was like, I can play like a little bit of like Mario for practice for TCL, but even that is going to like have a little knock-on effect. Like that 15 minutes of period is like, now I know like, probably not today, but on Friday, I'm going to have to start like a little earlier, end a little bit later, which is fine because it's just the natural like ebb and flow of the week. But I think we benefit from treating it the way that we treat it. So I almost see that that paranoia as a good thing, to be honest.
I want to double back real quick because I guess this is some fourth wall breaking stuff for someone listening. Like, to me, I know I am 100% on board when it talks about like the progression of Unity. We get a couple tough games. The first one, you're like, oh, here we go. I think I found the antidote. But so if you ever hear me like start asking questions and getting stuff riled up, it's like I feel like banter is the antidote to playing bad. And I feel like at a macro level, for the kind of content we produce, I don't want to say I'm accurate, but I like to think I am, is that, you know, people don't watch us to win 4 straight BR games in a row. When that happens, then all of a sudden it's like it's the cross section of dopamine and entertainment. So it's like, I think for me, the way I approach Unity is like, I can 100% what you're talking about. I feel it. I feel like, hey, we were cruising at 88 miles per hour last week. Now it's like, hey, we're stuck in first gear. How do you oil that? You just keep throwing banter at it and battering at it. And sometimes like we can get back from like first gear to like third or fourth, and sometimes we can't. But I think you bring up an interesting question about the dynamic of like keeping the energy there. And it may be something, because I saw people saying in chat like, oh, I really liked Unity, this past Tuesday. And I think sometimes like we can maybe feel something a little bit different, like where it's like, hey, like we knew 2 weeks ago, it was like to me, it was the return of Unity. It was 2 weeks ago. And then second week, there was a little bit of a dip, but I think as long as the effort's always there, I think that's good eats. But then you also brought up like TCL practice, like practicing for like a game. You're not getting, I'm guessing you didn't record the practice, right?
No.
So you're not getting content out of that, but you're like carving time out of the schedule. And that's kind of how I was last week. I'm like, all right, hey, I'm going to practice 30 minutes a day to get myself in a position to like, be competitive in the playoffs. And then it's like that 30 minutes is away from videos. So then all of a sudden, a couple events pop up and then that falls away to the wayside. I feel like some people, I mean, like when you pull the curtain back, like for you to, like you, Matt, you knew you had like 15 to 20 minutes, which isn't enough to do a video, but you still squeeze something in. But let me ask this, if you didn't have that 15 to 20 minutes, would you have practiced? Would you have taken away recording time to practice?
No, I would have done it at night. But then even there, like you're stealing from like your metaphor, you're stealing from another bucket, right?
Yeah.
So like I've been staying up like a little bit later to squeeze in a little bit of practice. But you're right. I mean, like one of the frustrations for me, especially like moving to a new PC, and this is the classic like YouTuber complaint. I'm complaining about like 2 comments out of 1,000, but I think it's worth bringing up anyway because it makes me feel better. So like I set up the new PC, right? And it was a thing that I did to make the content better. But then like 2 little technical things happened that salted a couple people up. One is my workflow got a little disrupted because I'm also on new YouTube Studio. So instead of posting the oldest Isaac episode in the backlog, I posted the newest. So it was like a week time jump that also was like, I'm not losing this week. Yeah. So it takes a little bit of the, attention out of that and, or a little bit of the interest out of that. But it was also just kind of funny. And most people were like having a good time. But then one person in the comments was like, oh, I suppose it's too much work for him to check his video to make sure it's right. It must be nice to be a YouTuber. And I'm like, oh my God, just insanity. And then the same thing, like when I was streaming Landlord Super yesterday, every other game had like cloud saves. Landlord Super and Double Switch were the only ones I found that didn't, unfortunately. But like people were coming in and they're like, why did he restart? And I'm like, being very patient. I'm like, oh, I restarted because the game didn't have cloud saves. And then somebody was like, wow, you didn't even like copy your save for Landlord Super over? And I was like, no, because I thought it had cloud saves because everything on Steam since 2015 supposedly has cloud saves built in. And then they went, oh, so you're like too lazy to do your job? And I was just like, what's it? Like you don't see it because I mean there's only like I don't know 4 to 8 hours of content that come out a day. We're working like 8 to 11 or 8 to 12 hours per day, 6 days a week on the back end. So it's like you're coming into the burger restaurant from the earlier metaphor and you're like, oh, like the calendar hasn't been flipped. Like don't they know today's June 1st? You still got the May side of your calendar up and you're like, oh, sorry, we've been busy. Too busy to do your job? Like, it's just, It's insanity to me.
I love getting just a little bit of prickly Ryan out on the show, and I feel like I've shied away from it. I think it's good eats, it's good banter, because
I think it's in character for me. Like that's one, because the start of this year I was too wholesome. Now the thing is, I never want to be the guy who complains about a specific comment and goes, "Oh, I guess I'm just a piece of garbage then." I think that's not in my character. But to take an ignorant comment like that and put it on blast and hopefully get some entertainment and humor out of it, I'm like, that's right. I can already tell right now, like in my belly, I've got rocket fuel. Something when I have to talk about stuff that I'm very passionate about, I start to talk in this higher register, and the words just come out a little faster. So I'm realizing I can harness some of that salt for entertainment for other people as well.
No, I think that's good eats, and from harnessing salt to harnessing the live Q&A. We're gonna take some live Q&A here as we wrap things up. If you have a Twitch question, at me or at Ryan, it's gonna automatically propagate in our show notes. And in the meantime, we're gonna take a few questions from Twitter from those people that use the hashtag #CheckTheWire, which we truly appreciate. Which, by the way, Ryan, there was an individual whose question we answered last week, and they were extremely appreciative that you took the time to answer it through Twitter. So,
oh well, thank you.
All right, so this is okay. This first question is from Twitter, called Cammy Mama. Says, both of you run shows and experiences rather than just streams. Ryan has even in the past done trivia and news segments. What leads you down this path, and do you see yourself changing anytime soon? Interesting question.
Well, I'll start on this one because you read it, so it seems like a better conversational ping pong.
Yeah.
The genesis of the NLSS was really like watching people stream and realizing like there's nothing wrong with the normal way of streaming, and if anything, I've kind of moved towards that as time has gone on because it's a little easier, quite frankly. But what if like we put a little bit more sauce on the production? What if we made it, like we had guests? I was really inspired by like late night shows for the most part that might open with like a monologue and then, a couple of like probably pretty bad, but maybe funny segments. And then they'll have a couple of celebrity interviews and like a musical guest or something like that. So it was more like that originally. I just wanted to do something a little bit more ambitious. But honestly, and this is not like a slight to the audience at all, but I found like in the same way that like sometimes if you're watching like a TikTok, you can be like, this is like really slick and like overproduced, and it kind of gives you a weird feeling like this isn't what I'm here for. Like I'm here for a video of a fight in a McDonald's, not like a Steven Spielberg production. That was like, it seems like the audience likes it, but you're not really like getting out what you put in necessarily. Like they're mostly here for the personality and less so for like the structured, like ambitious content. And I see it a lot on Twitch, and it's not like a fair comparison always, but there will be like really, really well-produced shows, like especially D&D campaigns that might have like 10 viewers. And then like a dude going to pick up his DoorDash and just the shot of his chair has like 8,000. So I really think that as I've been more influenced by Twitch culture and gotten feedback from my audience, what my audience I think wants in a broad sense is not necessarily a unique show in terms of like segmentation or something like that, but more putting like your unique personality that they're there for in the first place on display as much as possible.
So just because I want to dig just a half second deeper. So you're saying sometimes when you put in the extra effort for like a special segment, it doesn't necessarily yield any different results or results greater enough to encourage more segments? Is that fair?
To some extent, but like I also... Well, I mean, really, the reason the NLSS moved from like a more structured thing to a more freeform thing that was banter driven is because I was putting in like an extra, 1 to 2 hours of work on every NLSS, getting trivia questions, making like Photoshop JPEGs with each trivia question so the audience can see it, soliciting gift copies from developers for the prizes, and then like so much time afterwards trying to make sure people would like win a prize but not even want it, and they're like, you can give it to somebody else, and I'm like, I don't want to give it to anybody else. What am I going to
give it to you?
Yeah, I'm going to message 100 people and be like, you want a copy of Braid? Like that's not my job. But so really like that stuff was fun, but it was also like as time went on, I was like, it's too much of a grind. So then we settled into like that banter kind of rhythm, which I think is better because it's all improv. But I think there's exceptions. Like Apollo has put a ton of work into TCL, and it's a different thing for him, and it's killing it, right? And then Champions of Salt it was a lot of work and there was a lot of blowback, but it also got great viewership and it got people talking. And, I think there's a lot of, I think there's benefits to doing that, but in terms of actually like running a show like that 5 days a week, I don't know if Twitch is. I think you can make it work. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the way I want to run my platform because honestly, it's too much overhead.
You want to know the best part about TCL and Champions of Salt? They were so much fun to compete in, and we just had to show up.
Just had to show up. And even this week, I'm like, I gotta practice. I gotta play Mario.
And that's a tip of the hat to both Kate and Austin and Apollo. They just, it was just made it fun. On my end, like, so I come from two segments. One, I used to do a show called Shooting Stars where it was just segments up the wazoo. It was like 3 segments and it was like a game show. In the third segment, I recorded answers from one of their closest friends and said, what do you think your friend sent? So I had to get them on Skype and do all this stuff. And it was like 10 episodes and it was a tremendous amount of work. And I'm like, okay, I know I can't keep this going like for an extended period of time. And then versus now, like there's a structured segment to the show, like one game, another game. But what I use segments for now is like, for example, in Tarkov, when it gets like towards the end of a Tarkov cycle, it gets a little snoozy. That's when I'll throw in, hey, here's a plan coming in from headquarters. Let's make a bit out of it. Here's supermarket sweep. Let's run through, so that's what I'll use segments for, to break up something I know is getting like a little bit dull or slower. That's what I'll use like specific bits for. So I have a little bit different take, and, but also I'm doing a solo show too. It's not like, you have guests always to banter off of and things like that. All right, next question. This is from Twitch. This is from Summoning Your Unit. Says, what do you enjoy seeing from a Twitch chat or Twitch chatter?
Just like, and I won't speak for you on this, but I think we have a similar opinion. Just being like engaged with the content is great. So like I noticed, I watched a clip yesterday, and this is it's very slightly little brother. I apologize, but for context, someone in chat was like, NL, I love you. I'm so high right now. And then I did a bit where I like looked at the camera and was like, I just want you to know, we all know you're high and you're going to be high forever. I know that the past, you've been high and then you've slept it off, and a couple hours later you feel normal. That's not going to happen this time. This is going to be the rest of your life. We all know, and we're all talking about it. And then, like, I thought it was a great moment. And then when I watched the clip back, Chad is just like, it's moving like a monsoon, right? So that's what you love to see in Chad. But then, I don't know, Chad's like it's hard, right? Because when it's going well, when it's going bad. It's basically just based on activity for the most part. So like, see, I know when I see it moving fast, even without reading any of the individual comments, people are at least engaged with the content, even if they're like, what you just said is kind of dumb. The worst is like, sometimes it happens during Warzone. If we're not having like a pogged game, there might be like 15 seconds between comments. Like if I glance and then I play for 15 seconds and then I glance and it hasn't changed, I'm like, oh my God, we gotta inject some life into this somehow. Because people are snoozing.
Yeah, I mean, we're on the same page. Like even just today, like I got all the feedback. I knew, like I played 5 minutes of Undertale and I polled the audience. I'm like, I already know, like I'm playing 5 minutes of Undertale and the chat is just swoosh. I'm not saying we're gonna play it, but I'm not like, that's it. It's just what you said. Like as long as there's something going on, it's like, I guess it'd be like stand-up comedy, right? You're up there telling jokes, and if you hear crickets, which is the equivalent of a frozen chat, like there's a couple times when I'm like, I'll go in. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, I get scared. I'll go to my second keyboard and I'll type in chat and I'll be like,
chat broken?
Yeah. And they're like, no, it's not broken. I'm like, all right, that's one of the worst like feelings, but it's also an indicator like, hey, all right, let's change it up.
Like I was watching you stream during Marbles today, and it was just like, I mean, there's a lot of like exclamation point play, but like at the same time, people were really engaged, like watching the marbles go down, and I was like, that's what you love to see.
Yeah, and that's like the best indicator to me of even more so than like any numbers or anything is like it doesn't matter how many people are watching. Like, yeah, you look at that, but if like you see stuff's rolling, then you know you're doing a good job. All right, we'll take one more Twitter and one more live question. This next one is, this is interesting. I think this should be a pretty quick question. This is from Cromulent Archer on Twitter. It says, this may be too granular, but I'm wondering if you talk about using an LLC for your channel revenue. If so, how and why? No one ever talks about it other than they're mentioning that they're doing it. So the question is, if you will talk about how and why you use an LLC.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it's boring because I think it's interesting to people, but it's largely for tax purposes. You know, if you run it through yourself as an individual, you pay income tax at a personal level, which in most countries, I don't want to say every country, but every country I can think of that I'm aware of, you pay at a higher rate than you pay tax for as a business. Businesses get certain tax breaks essentially because if you're buying something that is used for the business, then you have an allowance to write it off and you pay less tax on it. And then you just pay yourself a salary out of the corporation that you as an individual pay tax on. So, I mean, I guess I'm curious as to like why, what you're specifically interested in. I like it because, I mean, for us, it lowers our tax burden. This is by far like the number one reason. But secondarily, people, they see it, I think, as like almost like tax avoidance, but it's not really like that because you're getting bled one way or the other. You're either getting bled as an individual or you're getting a little bled as the business. And then when you take it out as salary, you're getting bled out anyway. So like, as long as you're doing things legally and by the book, you're still paying. What it changes though is that like, you know, the business has like different advantages and disadvantages. Like we can't just go into our business account and be like, we're going to buy a Lambo for the business. Right. But what we can do is, you know, we can go into the business account and we can, you know, buy all of our new tech stuff. And when our tax authority like looks at that stuff, they're like, this all looks kosher because it's coming from the business account. But there's not much more detail to like go into at that point.
Let me first grade it. Okay. You have $100, right? And your personal $100. And this is not accurate, but I'm just going to first grade. You made $100, right? You have no LLC. Let's just say they take 25% off the top. You now have $75, right? Okay. But you still gotta buy Demon Souls, right? Demon Souls costs you $50. So now you got $25 left. You got an LLC. You make $100. You spend this right off the top. You get 25% off of 50, which we're not talking about a lot, but it's the little things and just stuff like that matters, right? Because you got to remember that Ryan and I aren't massive corporations. Like we gotta like be diligent about where you spend money, and so if you can reduce the bleeding and have like a little band-aid as opposed to an open wound, you know, you can do that. And then, so I don't know if the numbers work out on that, but in my head it did. All right. And then the last question from the live polling audience. And this one could be a little deep, but we'll keep it succinct. This is from Little Dinkster. It says, does seeing other people's success on the platform ever discourage you at times when you're focusing or trying to grow?
I think it can, for sure. But I think I think it's just one of those things you have to be aware of if you're a rational adult. Cause like, sure, like I see people like blowing up on YouTube, specifically like Sinvicta's exploding on YouTube. We had a situation before as well where like, you know, I used to collaborate with somebody called Omrecker. And then like we stopped working together a lot around like 2013, 2014. And now he's got like 3 million subscribers. So I think there is like a little, like a gut reaction where you're like, oh, I started like 80 times bigger than this person, or I don't know, 10 times bigger than this person. And like, what happened? Like they're all of a sudden they exploded. I think there's a tendency for jealousy for sure. But I think that what you do is you recognize that as like a real emotion or tendency. And then first off, I'm happy for them more than anything else. And secondly, like what lessons can I learn from the way that they've done it that maybe could impact me, instead of being like sore that somebody I'm friends with or acquaintances with has like eclipsed me. Instead, I can look at what they do and be like from Sinvicta, we've learned lessons on like, you know, how to incentivize people liking your videos without being scummy, or like introducing like little like weekly quests or something. And, you know, from Omrecker, I'm like, I see Omrecker, he has a huge variety. He plays like, you know, a lot of VR stuff that does really well for him. And like watching him be successful in like Dead by Daylight, I'm like, oh, maybe there is an audience that I don't have to immediately be like, no, we're never playing Dead by Daylight again. Because there's people that even like 6 years later like watching it. So I definitely think that it's a natural reaction, maybe not to be like jealous, but there's like a dampening effect that can happen. And the mature thing to do is just recognize that that's like, it comes from your own insecurity, really. And what you can do, instead of being like, this is a valid feeling, how dare they pass me and make me feel bad, you look at it instead and you go, what did they do to get there? And is there anything that I can take from them to also help myself and my growth, but also like genuinely being happy for them? Like Sinvicta, there's no reason to be upset. Like the dude is working his butt off on the platform and has been doing it for like, I don't know, like 9 years or something right now. So really, like, it's a test. If anything, it's a positive impact when you look at it from a rational sense, because a lot of people think like growing on YouTube is essentially like impossible now. So to see people that are like, I refuse to hear that, and I'm actually making it happen, if anything, it's kind of like, it's like a nitrous boost for me.
Yeah, you know, I echo a lot of what you said, but I wanted to write this down because I wanted to be like 100% forthright. I got kind of a three-prong attack. I think 5 years ago, 6 years ago, like I was like, oh man, like holy cow, like I need to work harder, or what are they doing? I wasn't necessarily not happy for someone, but I was like, man, I'm doing something wrong. That was like early. Now it's like, I'm being selfish. I'm very happy for the person, like number one, but also I know, like, for example, like if Melf does well as he's doing, as Austin as like, guess what, like that means it's more opportunity for everyone to do well, right? So let's say like Austin's TCL, he comes to Team Unity, guess what, like those TCL people are coming. So it's a little bit selfish, but like I'm happy for them for all their hard work. But it also, just because they're doing well doesn't mean that it means I'm not doing well, or it's not an opportunity for us all to do well. So it's kind of like like I believe it. I know some people like may balk at the idea, but I truly believe in a rising tide, right? Like there's no way that Austin doing well in TCL, which we're both fired up and happy for him, there's no way we don't derive some benefit from it. It is what it is, you know? So it's like, would I rather do my friends do well and everyone raises up, or I don't want to see them doing poorly, number one, for them, because I know how much they love it, but also like, you know, there's like the tide's not rising, it's dipping. But that's the honest truth. And then on the flip side, like I'm not gonna lie either, like competitively, like I've been keeping an eye on TikTok, and I'm like, okay, I had like a 4-month lead on Ryan.
I passed you.
And he said he passed me. And
I'm up there.
I'd something like that. I'm like, because I'm very competitive. I'm like, okay, like to me that gives me a little juice, but I'm not like, oh man, you know, forget Ryan. I'm like, man, he's doing something a little different, or like, you know, I want to keep up with that. And then to kind of cap everything off, I think Tom Hanks said it, and recently I read it. It's like, hey, if you're working with people, and I don't know how related this is, if you're working with smart people and you're not stealing from them, aka like learning from them, then you know you're not very smart yourself. Like Sinvicta, like you said, he's killing it. So I didn't be like, oh, he's killing it, I'm not. I'm like, yo, Sinvicta, like, whoa, teach me. Yeah, teach me. Yeah. And I don't know about you. And as we wrap stuff up, I don't think I've ever had someone, and not maybe because I'm not killing it, say like, hey Dan, how did you do this? Like, and to me that's a sign of like, I don't know, just someone I've never had someone come to me like that. Like I said, maybe because I don't know what I'm doing, but like to Sinvicta, I'm like, what an incredible resource. He's killing it and he's willing to share. Like, why wouldn't I ask him, hey, here's what I'm doing on Spelunky, what would you do? How could I do this different and better? Like I just think it is a credible resource. But to wrap things up, I think it is like a human emotion to be like, man, like I'm getting beat out, or like a little bit of jealousy. But for me, the big switch was everyone can win. So that's how I view it.
And I'll also just to put a bow on it, the other thing that I think specifically keeps me grounded is like, I've exploded, not in like the last 5 or 6 years, but like I've gone through those periods of like ridiculous growth where really like on an economic level, my life has changed a lot. And for like a month, you're on rocket fuel. And then like a month later, you're like, this is just normal now. So I realized that the other thing is like, if you get jealous of somebody that's like 10 times your size, it might sound a little almost cynical, but I don't really mean it like that. It's like people adjust to their situation very quickly. So just because someone's larger or smaller, it doesn't mean that they're like happier or more fulfilled. If anything, I've seen people on Twitter all the time that are like crushing it on YouTube and still complain about like mindless stuff. The same kind of stuff that bothers me. I'm like, oh, if I had 1 million subscribers, this wouldn't bother me. I see someone with like 5 million subscribers that's like, can you believe this one person was being a jerk in my comments? And I'm like, okay, we're all the same, basically. Of course, I agree with what you're saying. Like, and TikTok is such a good metaphor because I want you to be successful. I want to be successful. But when you pass me, and you may, again, we're like probably 20 followers away from each other or something like that. I'm going to be like, maybe like tomorrow, maybe I didn't want to post a TikTok, but I'm like, oh, Dan just went viral. I got to post a TikTok to stay in the game. So I think there's a psychological aspect. I think there's a motivational aspect. I think the worst thing, though, you can do is just be resentful of it for no reason because you only hurt yourself.
Yeah, no, and I think like, and I guess I'll direct this, if you are kind of feeling that way, I would just always say, like, look inward and be like, okay, hey, look, what are they doing that maybe you can do better, or what could you learn from them? Or, you know, to me, I always make the statement, like, let it sting, like, let that sting feel that, all right, this person passed you, acknowledge that sting, and then move on, and then start working again. But I think, you know, this was another piping hot, dude. We're over. We're over.
What else is new?
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see the live video, Saturday mornings, youtube.com/ usually Saturday mornings, youtube.com/Northernlion. But as always, the podcast audio is live Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play. If you guys leave a review on any of those platforms or rating, it helps us out tremendously. Thank you guys so much for supporting the podcast and listening and giving us your feedback and questions. For me, it's truly, I look forward to it every week. I'm going to put the words in Ryan's mouth and say he does the same. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week. Later.